All right, I call the meeting of the March 14th Portsmouth Community Network Broadband Authority to an open, and first on our agenda is our roll call, and Madam Secretary, if you would proceed.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Barnes, Mr. Glover,
Yes.
Mr. Hugo,
Present.
Mr. Moody, Mr. Tillage, Dr. Whitaker, Mrs. Lucas.
Here. All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, while we don't have a quorum to go into some pertinent parts of our agenda, we will do the parts that we can. For now, we'll skip over the adoption of the minutes, and we'll move to discussion topics. And first up is the membership resolution of the recommendation of change in membership. And we had lengthy discussion last meeting about this. And I guess Attorney Swearinger or Manager Terry.
So we just had, and the reason we did bring this forth, because it was some discussion about it. Do you want to just kind of give a quick and dirty?
Oh, sure. So if the will of this board and our council would be to make it so that in the future, all appointments would be non-council members and just citizens, that would be a resolution that council would need to adopt, and not this board, since this board doesn't really have a say over the appointments. So the next step would be to bring that to council, to have council consider a resolution to that effect.
Yes. And the other part of that is, if that is the board's desire, I would just need direction to bring it before council.
Okay.
Yep.
And we are in order to act upon that now.
Or you could do a consensus,
Yes.
essentially just to give the city
To
manager.
get this, okay, and we have a fourth member, so we have a quorum now to do that. So the item before us is to consider a membership resolution to change our current membership status from council members serving on this board to, so I guess, appointing citizens from the community. So if that is the consensus of this board, then we need a show of hands if we want to proceed in that manner.
So could I ask a question?
To
Discussion,
bring it to council.
to bring it to council for the approval of the resolution.
So the discussion was to add technical know-how to the board. Is it possible that we could set membership that's some of city council and some citizens? I mean, there's nothing that says it's all got to be citizens. It's not an either or, is it?
No, correct. Just like our Economic Development Authority, there are 2 liaisons on the different boards that serve for the city. So the liaison, if it's the desire of council to have,
We're not the liaison for
It will-
this one.
This is
It will.
different.
oh, you wouldn't
He's
have.
talking membership.
Yeah, I'm talking membership. So
versus
liaisons are
liaison is two different
non-voting.
things.
Okay, so good question, so I can be clear. One, are you saying, you want to be a member, or you want liaisons from council to still be a part of the board so that we can continue, you can have a say-so or be a part of?
Well, we would need a member, if a member of council is serving, then they would need to be able to serve in a voting capacity,
Right.
and that would not be a liaison. So that would be a member of the board.
Committee. So I guess you would have to direct me of what do you want? So I'll know how to proceed.
Right.
Do you want that, or do you want?
I'm asking
liaison?
if we're able or allowed to do that.
So I would like to see a citizen-run board and have council members as a liaison,
Okay.
so that they could have oversight, just like they do our planning commission, EDA, PRHA, and other boards and commissions.
And council members, keep in mind that liaisons are there to note discussion and bring items to council, not so much to participate.
Right. Right.
Because it's the board's meeting. Council members are just there to gather the information. If there's something that needs to come back to council, that might be a hot item or something like that, to do that. But they would in no way be a member of the board or vote or anything, and really, truly should not take part in the discussion.
Okay.
So it would kind of be set up, like we're on like regional boards, and we have one of the boards, I know I have voting, but that's for the Southside Network.
But that's regional, that's different.
But in the same capacity that there is, the voting right is what makes the difference. So is it, so I guess we need to determine if that is possible. I don't think we can answer that on the fly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we can report back and then figure out which one you would rather. But again, I guess I can't make that determination. Vice Mate, well, who are you in here today?
I'm just I'm chairing here.
She's the chairman.
Yes.
Chairwoman.
Chair
Which
had
is-
one.
Your let me just interject it just real quick. Your hesitation notes another issue
Yeah.
in terms of
Right.
separation
Right.
and conflicts as we get closer to contracting and other things.
Right.
That's something you all should consider in terms of whether you want to remain members or just liaisons to it. I think it makes it much more cleaner for my office and my
Right.
heartburn and headache, quite frankly,
Right.
if you were merely liaisons, because of the having served on, or I don't serve on that board, but being a part of the SNA, the regional board, there are a lot of closed session things. And there can be some issues with conflicts that I just think can be avoided if you all are not members.
So can you say more about that? So give me an example of a conflict that
So-
somebody sitting on city council could get into by being a voting member of this authority.
That's a good question. So let's just say, for example, on the regional, at the city council level, okay, there are a number of ways that this could happen. Yeah, I'm sorry.
And council, while you're discussing that, something else to take into consideration, if you have 2 or 3 council members that are on the board and the rest are citizens, you're gonna have 2 or 3 council members that know everything that's going on. And it's gonna depend on them to alert council of anything that's going on. So it kind of gives them the advantage over the other council members, which I don't think you really want to happen. It's really, I'm not taking nothing away from what they're gonna say, but it's really a either or. Either you're gonna be board members or you're gonna have liaisons.
Right.
Trying to do half and half,
Right.
you're going to run into issues
Right.
of who has information, who doesn't, how they acted. Did they act as a council member? Did they act as a board member? It just, like
And that
the
was my
attorney
hesitation
said.
because it's sort of and Mimi always has the great analogy, so I'm going to let you give the analogy, but
So suppose there's a business that wants to come to Portsmouth. The business owner wants to do some broadband. Now that he knows you are a member of this board and you're a member of council, he needs your support. So you have a shiny new pony just to kind of convince you that he's the best. And, and then you're no longer a council in 4 years. And then, because you want to run for president or something. And then you decide that, then,
You're a funny lady.
and then he comes to you and says, I need your support, because you may stay as a board member, but not. So I just think it puts you in a position where it kind of sets you up for failure. I mean, is that too
well,
rough?
the implication of
Yeah,
failure.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just
very
because, and the reason I say that is because all these new businesses who are coming to the city are coming with the hopes of getting a little piece of dark fiber. So why not prompt and get at you now? And I know you would never do that, but it's like not even put you in a position
Yeah.
to have to deal with it.
Right. And then the devil's advocate on that, the flip side of that is that we would assume council members know how to distinguish themselves in one role or another, and we function that way, and that there's always going to be eyes on the prize if there's a council member present. So these are all factors you should consider, obviously, when you're trying to formulate that.
I've never seen a mayor raise his hand.
Yeah,
I didn't
he's
know
waiting
how
for
it
the
felt.
floor. Mr. Glover.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. So, you know, the whole idea for me, and I'm just speaking on behalf of myself, you know, we have other boards and commissions similarly situated. The purpose for having a technical board or individuals who have expertise in those areas, to me, that's the ideal. Because what we want to do, we want to be transparent. We want to be able to show the community that we're acting in a way that is appropriate. And that way, we never have to worry about the lines being crossed as it relates to council and a vote. If it's all driven by the board that we appoint, we conduct ourselves the same way that we do in any other operation. I don't want that burden on me. I want to be transparent with the citizens. I want to have subject matter experts who are in our community serve on this board, because I think in that regard, we get the best of both worlds. We get our citizens to step up and serve and provide their level of expertise and support, and they'll bring us back the best answers. That's how I feel.
And there will be agreements that council will need to review that that the authority will be making, so that also creates a...
And council ultimately has oversight, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear.
So the example that you all offered, I'll take that to the extreme. So if city council members remain the members of the authority, then that's 7 opportunities for somebody in business to come and try to sway one or more. And so your argument would suggest that we abandon ship, turn the thing over to a citizen-run effort, and assign liaisons so that none of us end up in that potential conflicted predicament. So then, if that's the way we think we're going, I guess I certainly agree with you that we need to have technical know-how on here, but I don't think it ought to all be IT technical know-how. I mean, there ought to be some business know-how, because you want business people who are thinking about how am I going to use the IT, so that we end up with kind of a nice balance of users and stakeholders and IT weenies who can speak the broadband language and not confuse themselves between dark fiber and Wi-Fi.
And y'all would appoint the board, this board would appoint the
members of the-
council, city council will appoint the members of the
Of this
board.
board,
Right.
just like we do any other
Right.
board
Right,
appointments.
right.
Mr. Tiller, did you have any comments there?
Oh, no, I'm in favor of having citizen serve,
Right.
have liaisons.
Okay.
And council members, if I can, especially looking at the potential, how far you can throw out your net, so to speak, I would not limit it to only Portsmouth residents, because you have specialty people that might be in Virginia Beach that can help the board to move things forward. Right now, you either have to live here or have a business here.
Right.
And I just wouldn't want you to handcuff yourself when it comes to throwing out your net to try to get the right board members. So that may be something that needs to be considered when you do the appointment resolution that'll be done by the attorney's office.
That sounds great. And I guess our next step would be, we would just continue to serve until we have a 7-member board in place. Okay.
And so we don't have to constrain ourselves to Portsmouth citizens only, is what you're telling me.
Correct.
So it's just how we craft the resolution.
Yes.
Nice. I like that.
Because as you had indicated, on our current setup with boards and commissions, you either have to live in Portsmouth or have a business in
Yeah.
Portsmouth.
Right. Okay.
Well, that
So,
addresses
Lisa.
the concern that I had around, are we do we enjoy enough technical know-how amongst the citizens to
Right.
have folks come forward and put ourselves in a position to have the right mix of talent in the room?
Okay.
And the other thing I would like to add, as a part of selecting the board members, we would do, just so you all know from the process and procedure, we would actually do, as we had done in the past, we would actually interview those individuals that we're considering for the board. So the council
Yeah, can feel
would,
comfortable.
we would bring them in, just like we do any other candidate. They would sit at the head of this table, and we would ask them questions relative to what we believe are the needs of the board, and then we would decide whether or not we're going to appoint them or not appoint them.
Is the "we" you're referring to the Personnel Committee or the council?
That's the whole
Personnel
council.
Committee will identify the candidates.
Okay.
But we will actually meet with the candidates as a council and be able to interview them.
Okay.
And we can, even through the selection process of identifying, we can include the entire council. That doesn't prohibit us from doing that. But it is a process that will include, it won't be the Personnel Committee making that decision, it will be the council.
So do we write criteria for the kind of people we want to bring aboard?
Yes, sir. What
Use
I-
to kind of grade the candidates and
What I
make the
would
selection?
recommend is following your standard boards and commissions outline, have them complete an application, encourage them to attach a resume with their experience in broadband. We have experts here that can write up the language that go in our boards and commissions manual, as well as what we would put available online for those persons that may be interested. So, but we would follow more or less the same process of boards and commissions that happens now.
Okay.
All right, so I guess what we would need is the consensus for our city manager, city attorney to draft up the resolution for council to vote on changing the membership status, and then we would need to post an announcement that this position is open and give it a timeline to conclude, and then we would interview candidates and select them to fully staff a 7-member board, and then we would be released at that point. Okay? All right. Yes, sir.
I think he's voting.
Voting?
I'm giving you my
Okay,
consensus.
okay. Okay. All right, so we have a consensus to move forward with that, and with that, you have your, okay? You have everything you need. All right, great. We'll move on to our next item, and that is the update on the progress Phase 2 of the city's fiber needs, and I guess, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, excuse me, before we do
Oh,
that,
go
can we
back.
adopt the minutes?
Yes,
please?
ma'am. Let's go back. We've already taken our roll call. We'll do the adoption of our minutes.
I move to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, and we'll have a roll call vote.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Barnes is absent. Mr. Glover?
Yes.
Mr. Hugo?
Aye.
Mr. Moody's absent. Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker's absent. Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we have adopted our minutes, and we'll continue with our discussion. Next item is the update on progress, Phase 2, and I believe our IT director has a presentation for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the authority. The item that we have before us is an update, and I would just simply say that the authority itself plays a very important role, as you know, in this age of information that we find ourselves in, and also knowing that the new currency is data. No matter where you are, what function, whatever, everyone, every vocation is interested in data and getting information. And so, with that being said, knowing the needs of our organization having to function as well, it was, in my opinion, a great thing that you did in setting this up to get the city side of things in a posture in which you can leverage savings and cost avoidance when it comes to broadband authority and broadband access in the city of Portsmouth. I'll just say that where we are now in phase 2, there are 2 components that we want to keep our eyes on. One is the fact that the actual hardware and infrastructure needs that are in place, and then 2, the in-house expertise when it comes to the deployment and management of this and following that deployment as well. So on the one hand, we are in the process now of getting quotes, and that should be for the purpose of purchasing equipment that's going to be necessary, the switches and other equipment that's necessary to actually make this work. So we have satellite facilities and places that belong to the city that we want to be able to capture and take advantage of the ring. And at each of those locations, there's this equipment that's going to make that actually work when it's lit up. And so we're acquiring some of that equipment and in the process of getting quotes for the purchase of that equipment. Also, simultaneously, there's configuration that happens to be necessary with the equipment that we have. And in acquiring that equipment, there's two pieces to that. There's the external configuration that's done by the manufacturers, if you will. And then, of course, locally to our own city's network here, there's requirements for configuration internally that has to be done for the city so that it will work along with our existing network that we have. Gathering lead times for the deployment is important also because as this equipment is coming in, it's a very large procurement with many, many components in that. And so we need to work with our vendor to get that information in, get that equipment in, and they're providing to us, will be providing to us what those times, those lead times will actually look like to get that equipment in. Switching from the hardware piece and updating you there, we go to hiring a consultant, right? So we're working now with our purchasing department for the city and discussing with them what that might look like. How is it that we can actually procure someone to bring that expertise in-house as a consultant? The city's IT department would like to put out an RFP for a fiber consultant, but that same individual would have that project management skill set as well. And then, of course, the language in that RFP would also be extended so that it would be a cooperative language agreement so that the actual broadband authority could ride off of that same language and leverage the consultant that the city would have. What does that timeline look like for the consultant and bringing that person on board or the consultant on board? First off, what we're looking at between now and April timeframe, middle of April or so, we'll be able to get the technical requirements and things together as well as the legal language, and then we'll be able to pass that on to procurement. Then, of course, in the month of May timeframe, procurement or purchasing would be able to put out an RFP on the street. At that time, we'll let it sit as they have required 30 days or more, 30, 45 days or so, to get the interest in those responses to the RFP. Then, of course, as they come in, once it closes, there's an evaluation process that a small committee or board, if you will look at the applications that have come in, and then we'll begin to narrow down and score the actual responses that have come in. And then the finalists will actually invite them in for oral presentations. and then that should conclude around the June timeframe, and then we'll make that award by July. And at that point, that consultant would be available to take over from there and offer to the network authority that expertise.
That's awesome. That is.
Right.
My question with that, we had questions. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
I know we needed a budget to get some stuff done, so this all sounds like money stuff to me. So is the city, or have we made a determination how much?
Right, I know we started with 50,000, that was our start. As we, again, fortunately, that'll be a part of a new budget. I would just have council to do a transfer of those funds as we need, say, with the RFP, because when they put it out for bid, I guess we'll just have to determine how much that will cost the city. And once we get that, we'll be able to adjust the budget based on that.
Right. So do we have a budget line with this authority right now for 50,000? We do. Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have several. Can you go back 2 slides, please?
And if I can mention also, one of the things that we did with the 50 was to get us started, but we knew over time the broadband would be able to have agreements, rentals that would pay its own, and fiber would pay for whatever long-term would come.
Okay.
Okay, so where it says progress on city's fiber, is city's fiber to be used by the city employees or fiber to be used by Portsmouth residents?
So my answer to that would be the initial function in which we came out of this, what I understand was born out of, was to leverage the fact that the city and city agencies and departments would be able to have a cost savings. I believe at the time, based on the information that I've read, the city was looking at the cost that it was going to take in order for a provider to run dedicated fiber to the individual facilities that would want to ride on it. And so we just go back to that piece of this will provide that cost avoidance and savings for the city to actually provide it to the departments.
Okay, so,
City's not authority.
I don't know, I'm with you.
Okay.
My question really is, when it says progress on city's fiber needs, that could be the City of Portsmouth employees communicating, or I mean, we're all part of the city, or it could be me sitting at my house looking to plug into the fiber ring that we're putting in place. And so what I heard the CIO just say is, now this is focused on the City of Portsmouth employee, connecting those people, enabling them. Is the phase 3, 4, 5, 6 somewhere out there? Is the vision that at some point I can connect into the fiber ring and buy my internet service from the city or from the ISP that's lighting up the fiber ring?
So I would say, Madam Chair, Councilman Hugel, or Member Hugel here, that there are multiple tracks that are moving, right? So you also have the regional ring that's happening simultaneously with what we have going on here. And so the fact locally with the ring that you have, the plans also is that you would tie into a type of data center on the city side. And once we are in the data center, that's when all kind of opportunities open up that will theoretically force prices for the city to begin to come down. And while in that space, of the data center, and those opportunities come, it's going to be a magnet for additional ISPs who are maybe not in the area right now,
Yeah.
but all of a sudden, they're there to offer as well. And then from there, with the consultant that we're about to hire, some recommendations and options are going to come to the authority on moving forward on what's the best courses of action that should be taken. And there will be recommendations.
Okay. So here's the reason I'm asking. So got it that we're aiming to equip the city to do city business. Would the selection of equipment be different if we had a bigger vision so that, yeah, we make the initial investment to let the city talk to the city, but if our vision is at some point in time, we're going to let the Swanson Homes plug into the network so that they can get internet access from a multitude of ISPs, would the equipment be the same that we're buying now, or would we buy something different, bigger, better? So I'm trying to, we had the vision to put this thing in the ground to begin with. That was forward thinking. I'm trying to continue to think forward, not just, what do we want by the end of this coming year, but what do we want 5 years from now? And if we buy the equipment with that vision, maybe it's exactly the same equipment. Maybe it's bigger, maybe it's faster, maybe it's, I don't know. But if it's different, it'd be important to know that. So we, if it costs you $1 million to buy a server to serve the city, and it costs you $1.2 million to buy a server that serves everybody in the city, I'd say let's spend the $1.2 million and buy the extra capability. See where I'm going?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So part of that conversation comes when you hire the consultant, and then they're going to be able to dig in a little bit further to make those determinations going forward. Capacity-wise, how much more can you actually expand? I will say, though, that built into the model that we have here, there are some situations that would include some residents. So I think there are grants, correct me if I'm wrong, but grants that have been applied for to help provide access to some of the PRHA, Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority properties, and providing Wi-Fi access in those areas that would then allow them to ride on the local ring that we have. I do know
Is that built into the equipment and the configuring of the equipment that you're planning to do now, or is that phase 3?
We already
already
have
have
that.
it.
We already have the grant money, and we've already acquired that.
But I mean, the purchase of the equipment is the specs that we put for the equipment that we're getting ready to buy will not only allow city people to talk to city people, but will allow us to plug into some of those neighborhoods.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The PRHA owned properties
Got it.
is what's built into the model and the funding, the grants that the city has already received.
Okay. So there's a CIP project to do what we've been doing. Is that project done now? It's like $12 million to install the fiber ring. Is that done? Are we still using that to buy equipment, or?
So that project won't be closed out till it's all the way closed out. I know we did a $10 million off the top. I know we use ARPA funds to do, to pay for Southside Network Authority to get into that. But I thought we already spent 10 million or 12 million on the actual ring. But I think it won't be closed until everything's said and done, because
Okay.
we're not done yet.
So
Yeah, with
are
your,
we
with your ring that you have, you're like,
half done?
you're
Quarters
95.
done? How far done are we?
So with the ring itself,
Yeah,
that part, you're 95% complete.
okay.
But that in other words, 8 miles or so across the city, and Portsmouth was the lead
Yep.
in this preparation. 8 of those miles are done. You got 2 miles to continue on the other side of the, I'm hearing different names and terms for it, but the Churchland Bridge, to go from there to another node that we have at a radio tower on West Norfolk Road. So you'll just kind of complete, once that Churchland Bridge is complete,
That held up.
then we can pick it up. So that's your critical path right there.
Okay.
And so we'll be able to go from there to that radio tower and finish that node, and your complete dark fiber ring will be done at that time.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean a switch and it's lit.
No, you still have to.
I'm tracking with you. We're putting the pipes in, we just haven't
Cut on the water.
turned, well, we haven't even connected to the water.
Right.
Okay, so I'm with you. All right. So I understand that Virginia Beach and Chesapeake have equipped their employees with mobile technology so that when the trash guy's driving around Chesapeake, if he sees a pothole, he can enter pothole at, and that all goes into some gripe system so that we're not dependent on Councilman Hugel to field all the phone calls about potholes and call them in to
Mayor Glover, too.
Miss Bernadette.
Bill Moody.
Yeah, so
And Lucasburg.
I guess my point is,
Please say something.
we apparently don't have that capability in our city vehicles.
We do, but since we're talking about it here,
Yeah.
we have had some stop and go. Y'all seen Click to Fix, you've seen P to P, P to C, C to P. We're now looking at all those, because I hear the same things from Public Works, Public Utilities.
Yeah.
And so we have worked out what mechanism we could use to be able to communicate with each other.
Right.
And if we could first communicate with each other, then we could extend that to the customers or our citizens. And so that's all the technology. I put so much technology on the new guy's back because, we're dealing with all technology. So that is to come. I think I got an email from somebody they sent me a Click to Fix, and I was able to shoot that out to somebody, and they addressed it and dealt with it. But it's trying to find that mechanism that is going to serve all of us well. And I agree. We put one of the things we did, we did gas cards, we did trackers. So if something's going on, we could find out where our vehicles are at all times. And so we're progressively getting there, and it's hard to tell somebody or ask somebody to please be patient because we didn't get here overnight, but we're trying to figure out what's the best way to communicate with our citizens and not have to go through you all for everything first.
So the way I asked the question probably comes across as being down on what we're doing.
Oh,
That's
no.
not my point.
I didn't take it like that.
My point is, we're getting ready to buy equipment and internal routing. Do we have the vision that all of that has to be set up so that we can equip all of our vehicles with some technology? And then are we out looking at what they're doing in Chesapeake, what they're doing other places where they're ahead of us in, how they're collecting
Data and information. Yeah,
information and where the information comes and how the information gets fed to the various department heads so that it's seamless and not all of us having to participate.
Yeah, we're just finding there's a need, and we do reach out to our counterparts. I think that's how we're able to address some of the other things that we're doing. But we were behind in technology, and it's like there's a mad rush to get us up to speed,
Yeah.
but we have a lot of competing priorities. and I won't say them all out loud, but I think we all know. And so we're just trying to find a place for it on the priority list that we can get it done. We have a lot of technology issues. We look for the quick but big impact, and that's going to have a big impact on our drivers and what they need to get out there and do. But again, they're out there looking and searching as well. We're just trying to get there. And I agree, we're looking at everything.
Okay.
We just don't want to leave anything on the table.
Okay, and then over on the right-hand side of the slide, so we're going to hire a consultant. Is the consultant going to work for you, for the manager, for the authority? How's the consultant plug in to offer advice?
So it'll be a hire and a person or consultant firm chosen by city IT reporting to the manager. And then with the cooperative language, the broadband authority would be able to.
Right, because it would be an RFP that the city issues.
Yeah.
It would go through the city procurement process, therefore be under the city manager. But the idea is that the RFP would have cooperative language, so if this authority so chose, it could ride on that contract and use the city's same fiber consultants. So it wouldn't be a direct hire, it would be a contractor, essentially. But if this authority wanted to, it could issue its own RFP, get its own consultant, but it would probably make sense to use the same consultant that the city has.
And so is the kind of the scope of the RFP for this person's responsibilities focused on the left-hand side, let's get the city connected, or is the focus, let's figure out what phases 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 need to look like and do the visioning, or going to project manage finishing the pipes in the ground, or or all of that, or
All of that.
all of that?
Right,
Okay.
right. Both marketing, best use case, and also project management.
So marketing meaning
How
that
do
person's
you-
going to reach out to business and invite them to come on aboard
Well,
and help us sell access when the time comes?
more so how consulting with this authority with how to market it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, great questions. Mr. Moody, did you have a question?
Well, I was going to follow up on Mark's comment about the technology. It was mentioned the technology enable our people on the street. We have a lot of vehicles that go about the city every day. I think you and I spoke of that a few weeks ago. That technology should not only be used to communicate with the citizens, but to communicate with the people within the city that can fix the problem.
Right.
Because I'm always amazed that a pothole can be on a main thoroughfare for a number of weeks, and sometimes it's one of us that ends up reporting it when I know darn well many a city vehicle has seen it. But they don't have to, I'm not beating up on them, they just don't have the technology or the system right now to report it.
Yeah.
Because that would be obviously a secondary thing with their primary job, but if there's a system, they could very well do it at the end of the day or at the time they saw it.
Yeah, we used to have a mechanism where they had on their phone, we had someone that would drive out and look at his main job was looking for it, finding the issue and
Right.
reporting it back. But that didn't work out 100% because, again, you have a person that says there's a pothole. And this is my favorite response when I see somebody shows up and says, hey, there's a hole there. Another person leaves and comes back and says, oh, but I think that's Public Works. Another person from Utility says, I think that's Public Works. And then Utility says, no, Public Works says, I think that's Utilities.
Right.
And then we find out
Sure.
it's Dominion Power, Columbia Gas,
Yeah.
So I get the calls where the citizen says, I got 5 people who came out and looked. 5 cars, 5 different people, they looked and walked off, and it's still a hole there.
Right.
So and then imagine that if they had a way to communicate with each other, Public Works would have called utilities and says, I've been out there. That's not us.
Right.
Go take a look at it and give us a response, and we could go forward.
Right.
So I'm feeling every piece of that, and so we're trying to find a way to make it work. We've had some department head meetings, and our department heads have worked in other localities and retired from other localities and said, this works. So we have IT in, and they're all on the table. So now we're reaching out to find out what works for us, and how can we incorporate in what we do. So that's on my list.
Right.
But we are moving forward. I don't want you to think it's not happening. We're just trying to find the mechanism that's going to work best for our city.
Yeah.
Great.
Great. Okay. Any other comments with our CIO's presentation? Okay, then we'll move to our next discussion topic, and that's the update of procuring new fiber consultant or an employee. I guess that was some of it too.
That was
same
some-
thing.
that was
Okay. And when I was reading it, it sounded like the same thing. All right, we do have a need for a closed session. I don't know how, we have a couple minutes that we can go in and
I would
discuss.
note that the closed session was a request by Dr. Whitaker at the last meeting regarding a question about a contract we may or may not have, but he's not present today, so
Okay.
we may want to table that.
Okay.
to another time.
Sure, certainly.
I'm fine with
We'll
that.
table. All right, we'll table that, and then we're into our new business section of our agenda, and future business topics, we already know that we're going to probably look at the resolution and then the application process. We won't need to do anything with that. You all will just bring it back to us, and then we'll move forward.
Yes.
Okay. Members, are there any other future business topics that you would like to hear about? Okay, then we have our next meeting that's scheduled for April 11th at 4 p.m. And we have no public speakers set up, no? Okay, all right, then, with that being said, we'll call for adjournment. We're adjourned.